Good evening and welcome to Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we're continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Our topic on tonight is the Oglala Women's Healing Circle. We have with us our co-host for this evening, Mark Daria, and our guest for the evening is Cynthia New Holy of the Oglala Women's Healing Circle. And Cynthia, again, is also a certified practitioner of mind-body medicine. Listeners, if you have any questions or comments for our guest or our co-host, you can email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com, or you can text us at 437-778-3299. If you have any resources that you would like to share with us on a national or local level from your country, your community, your faith organizations, or any local organizations, you can also email us at sufferinginsilencedv@gmail.com. And with that, Mark, I would ask if you would greet our listeners on this evening.
Certainly. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for being here. We're covering, obviously, as Minister Tia said, we're covering domestic violence tonight, and an incredibly important topic, and looking forward to a lively discussion on this, and just getting our heads around it a little bit, and hopefully helping some people who are struggling with these issues.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mark. Cynthia, if you would not only greet our listeners and viewers on tonight, but if you would share the contact information for the Oglala Women's Healing Circle for anyone who wants to participate in your organization.
Good evening. Mitakoyapi malakolia kanagilawi imachapi na washichuya Cynthia Nuholi imachapi naha iyuha chante washte nape chayuzape Oglala, South Dakota, na Pine Ridge Reservation, Awati. In Lakota, I said the Lakota name given to me is Hummingbird Woman, and in English, I'm called Cynthia New Holy. Hello, my relatives. I shake all your hands with a warm heart. I live in Oglala, South Dakota, on the Pine Ridge Reservation. To be able to get some contact information about our women's group, you can get on Facebook and look up Oglala Women's Healing Circle. Oglala is spelled Oglala, and you should be able to find it easily. I do have a link that I would hope that we could share with you later here.
Thank you so much, Cynthia. And before we move on, we want to share some resources. First, we have the Human Rights Watch Domestic Violence website. Their website to get information on domestic violence and human rights is hrw.org. We also have the Amnesty International Domestic Violence website. Their website is amnesty.org. You can find stories of women who survived domestic violence and who are taking their stand to help others and sharing their stories and information. We also have the World Health Organization Domestic Violence website for information on violence against women and information on violence itself as a global knowledge platform to prevent domestic violence. Their website is who.int. And there are also a couple of articles that we want to share with you. One on domestic violence against women, recognizing patterns to seek help. This is from the Mayo Clinic. So their website is mayo-clinic.org/healthy-depth//in-depth/art-2004837. And that will take you directly to this website, to this article that we wanted to share with you. And the last article that we wanted to share with you on domestic violence is about spousal abuse, intimate partner violence, and finding help, how to find a therapist. So this is a long site. This is from Psychology Today. Their website is psychologytoday.com/US /basics domestic dash violence. So we encourage you to visit these websites. We encourage you to read these articles, and we encourage you to continue to look for resources on your own to do what you need to do for yourself. And that's part of the conversation that we want to have on tonight. And again, also, if you would like to donate to Ruta Rise Out of the Ashes Inc., my nonprofit, you can visit GoFundMe, look up Rise Out of the Ashes, and you can help us do what we do as we continue to support victims and survivors of domestic violence as well. And so on tonight, we want to go right to Cynthia. Cynthia, first, I want to ask you, about an overall update on the Oglala Women's Healing Circle. You've been with us a couple times before, but tell us, for those who don't know, what it is, what you do, and an update on what's going on so far.
Thank you for allowing me to be here. And I just want to say, forgive me for speaking in front of any elders that may be listening this evening. That's part of our culture to say that. Um, the Oglala Women's Healing Circle originated out of the healing from the trauma that I experienced of domestic violence from a previous relationship. And in this journey of healing, I came across a training. I'm a teacher at Ishnawicha, Iowa. It's called Lodeman School in Oglala, South Dakota, an elementary school here. And they sent us to a training back in 2016, 17. And it was about what they call mind body medicine. And the mind body medicine program was started by Dr. Jim Gordon. um, he it's called the Center for Mind Body Medicine. It addresses population wide psychological trauma and was founded in 1991 by Dr. James Gordon, an MD, a former National Institute of Mental Health researcher. He's also a Harvard educated clinical professor of psychiatry and family medicine at Georgetown Medical School and former chairman of the White House Commission on Complementary and Alternative Medicine Policies. He is also the author of Transforming Trauma, The Path to Hope and Healing. So he came to the reservation on request of Edwina Brownbull, is the coordinator at the school called Little Wound in Kyle, South Dakota. And she put together a grant along with other colleagues of hers to be able to bring this program to the reservation and as a training. And again, the reason that they brought it was because at that time there was a high rate of suicide with our indigenous youth here. So this program was life changing for me. I was straight out of the trauma of the domestic violence, barely within a year there, still experiencing the after effects that happens when someone goes through a severe trauma, triggers, anxiety, just a lot of inner emotional turmoil. And this program was so powerful on being able to calm my nervous system and to be able to tap into where that trauma was and heal it. There's different techniques that are used by this program to be able to really help calm the amygdala. They call it in the brain, the amygdala. That's your fight, flight, freeze, fawn, that is activated from trauma, and when it is not calmed down, it can really start to tear away at our body and emotions and mental health. Um, so what's amazing about CMBM, Center for Mind, I will be coining CMBM as Center for Mind Body Medicine, is it's successfully worked with population-wide trauma in communities challenged by war, poverty, mass shootings, climate-related disasters, opiate addictions, genocide, and in response to the unprecedented psychological trauma of the COVID-19 that had affected us a few years back. So this program was introduced to an audience of elders, educators, youth, lot a lot of community members that were there. And it was about a 4-day training. And I will tell you, it was like the boot camp for healing. There was so much crying, there was so much releasing. And it basically stems on the center of being able to hold the foundation of sitting in the moment, not worrying about what happened yesterday, not worrying about what's going to happen tomorrow, but just simply like understanding how you're feeling in this moment. And so I went through this training, and um, it, it inspired me so much. I wanted to go again. I wanted to learn more about it. And they gave me a grant to be able to become certified in the program, and it's quite a task. You have to do about 8 weeks of a circle with 8 weeks of the mind body medicine, and then there's a second one with papers involved. There's lots of stuff. So I was able to, while I was already having these circles, I started the Women's Healing Circle here in Oglala to help our women who have experienced trauma, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, generational traumas, and any kind of trauma. And like I said, the domestic abuse is pretty strong, you know. So with with this, I was blessed to have been certified by this mind body medicine techniques created by Dr. Jim Gordon, and have been given permission to share these techniques aligning with the mind body medicine program and my own personal techniques that I've learned on my own healing journey. Um, so it started in 2019, and it was in person, like monthly. The local college here, Oglala Lakota College, sponsored our programs for me to start. And I originally started with just the women because I know, as a domestic violence, uh, you know, survivor, the emotional mental trauma and conditioning that you go through as a victim. You know, the man doesn't want you to go around anyone that's, another man, or so if it's just all women, it's all a safe place in being able to do so, and vice versa. The men that get abused, the women don't want the man going around other women. And we have amazing person here named Emmanuel that's working with our men and the Fatherhood Society. So that's where we started once a month. I donated my own food. I tried to put out there, potluck, and but we would just cook, a meal at least, and welcome the women. And at first there was just a couple, and then by the time we continued, I had about 12 relatives, I call them relatives,
Mhm.
12 women that came to the circle. And that's when COVID hit. So by the time we finally got it rolling, COVID hit and we were devastated. Couldn't do anything, as you know. And at that point, we had to reassess. And my colleague, Nosheen, introduced me to Zoom. Never knew what Zoom was before this. Um, and it was this amazing blessing that happened in this going on Zoom, because we were able to reach our indigenous relatives from the West Coast up north as far as Alaska, the East Coast down south as far as Guatemala. We've had relatives come on. And again, I use the term relatives because in our Lakota way, we believe that everyone's a relative, and we're all related. So this beautiful blessing happened. Women would randomly drop in from different places, different tribes. We get to know each other, learn from each other, and share these beautiful mind body medicine techniques to help with stress and trauma. And I haven't quite gone back in person. I tried once or twice, but it's like barely anybody would come, so it's just more efficient to use Zoom. Seems like we get more people that come that way, but we're still working on that. That's one thing we try to do. So this program that I started here, it's pretty much a grassroots project. I don't have any business connections to it, no uh, foundations or anything. It's just something I do on my side time as a teacher. Um, and the beautiful part here is that we have been able to continue this work. And I was introduced to different circles. Mr. Paul Frank, um, he has a recovery circle that he does, and helps our relatives that are recovering from drug and alcohol abuse, and other things. So his group, I just wanted to pull that up real quick, is called Carrying the Message. I was introduced to him, and we decided to correlate, and now we have our men and women's circles every Sunday evening, and we have our women's Sunday biweekly mornings. And this has been a beautiful correlation to help both our men and women. And this mind body medicine program is based for both genders. But again, the reason that I concentrated on just our women is because of the psychological trauma that is inflicted on our women when they're in that kind of relationship. I remember I couldn't walk down the grocery aisle if there was a guy there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
God forbid I looked outside. If there was a guy walking down the street, I would just get blamed, you know. So there's this psychological conditioning that happens to our women, and they can be so strong. Their spirit can be so powerful. Um, and then when this happens, it really deteriorates their spirit, you know, in that sense. And I will be getting to what we're doing now, but I just want to explain a little bit of the history of this, if you guys don't mind. The So from the healing that I went through of recovering from the domestic violence, um, it was pretty horrific. My hair was cut off. I have a titanium plate here for how many times I was beat up. My teeth were broke out. They were that big, you know. But I feel like the phoenix, you know, rising from the ashes. And I am so powerful and so strong and love myself so much more than I did at that time, being in that relationship. And what I learned in my healing journey is how I felt about myself is what I attracted in my life. So if I didn't feel good about myself, I attracted someone that didn't treat me good. You know, now I'm in a good relationship. My husband is an enrolled member here of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Myself, I'm Scottish Irish ancestry, and I'm the mother of 5 Lakota children. I was basically raised Lakota way. It's what I know, but I'm authentic to myself. You know, I always say that I'm Scottish Irish. But my goal, who I am, is to bring the path of healing to our relatives who've been through that emotional mental trauma. That's who I truly am. That's my goal. That's my fate, whatever you call it. Um, so it what we've been able to do with this is continue our Zoom meetings and reach out to whoever wants to come. It's welcome to all women. It's not just our Indigenous women, you know, and I just want to, you know, reference that as well. But what we usually do is every April, because this is when I started the program, is April 2019, is we have what we call a Wopila. And that's a giveaway to you give gifts away to say thank you to Creator for all the blessings that have come into, you know, this healing program, you know, because I don't take it on. I give it to all the glory to God. You know, I always say thank you to Creator for all the blessings and helping the women. I just show what I've been through, you know, in that sense. And so this last year we changed it up a little bit. We went into action. I just felt this strong guidance to bring this to the streets of our community. And so we had what we called the domestic violence awareness healing walk, and it turned out beautiful. We had, I can't remember his last name, but they call him Bull. His name's Emmanuel. He's the one that has the fatherhood group, and he has his young men that he helps, you know, show how to do things, you know, whether it be changing tires, learning to sing traditional songs, learning how to be a man, you know, because unfortunately the generational trauma has created a lot of lateral violence and disconnections on being a family unit, you know, and learning how to be a man. That fire generation has been put out, and we're restarting, you know, each generation sometimes on how to be Lakota in a way. So the thing that he did was he helped to bring his young men in and to sing and pray as we began this walk. And there's a video on my personal Facebook it's at the very top that you're welcome to check out and watch under Cynthia New Holy. But we started from the local church there and walked down Main Street, Oglala. And we kind of intended just to walk on the sidewalk, but we had police escort, and we're like, oh yeah, well, we should just go on the street. So this was kind of new for me. This is something I never did, but being around other relatives there that had done these kind of things before was very helpful, and I was grateful for that. and all the relatives that came to walk in honor of relatives they've lost, in honor of relatives that continue to endure the abuse. And we are in a place where there's limited resources. We have a program called, the Oglala Suicide Victim Services that does their best to try to help our relatives, but there's such a huge cloud of a trauma on being able to get to everyone. So we have to sometimes reach out to other shelters in the areas. So they also came and provided some bags for the relatives to carry that talked about, being safe from domestic violence and just giving information for help. And so we started walking. So I'm kind of going all over, but we started walking down the road. And as we were walking, there was just this beautiful feeling. Everybody was in prayer, praying for the communities around us. We didn't want to walk in the communities themselves because there are situations where the perpetrator will look at the victim and say, "This is your fault they're doing this," or there's always some reason to blame. So, in mindfulness of that, we just walked Main Street and we prayed for our relatives in the communities for, health and help and good things for our relatives mentally, emotionally, to be able to heal from domestic violence and lateral violence. So as we're walking, relatives started coming and walking with us from the community, and it turned out to be a beautiful walk. So that's what Oglala Women's Healing Circle has come from. Original women circle to now having women in a separate circle for men and women. And then now our walk, our domestic violence awareness walk, which was inspiring to do in other communities as well on the reservation. So that's where we're at this moment, you know.
Well, that is awesome. That's a lot that has transpired. So I have a question for you, and then I'm just gonna go right over to Mark before I switch gears. But I want to ask you, uh, how has your personal experience with the trauma you've dealt with, dealing with domestic violence, how has that helped you do what you do? Or does it? Does it come into play at all? Because I tell individuals you do not have to be a victim or a survivor of domestic violence in order to help someone if that is your calling. Like if you're a counselor, if you're an advocate, you do not have to have had to go through this experience yourself. And then if you have had this experience and you're in this area and you're helping, that doesn't mean that you have to divulge your personal situation.
Mm,
But I know me personally, I do believe that I have a knowledge, I have an awareness, I have a compassion that I would not have had if
mm.
I had not gone through my own personal experience. So I want to ask you, has your own personal experience played any part in what you do, or do you keep it separate and just keep it moving?
My personal experience is the foundation for what I do. Um, it's the only reason that I am doing what I'm doing because of what I experienced. Like I said before, that situation, I was very timid. I worried about what people thought of me. I didn't feel self worth or self love. And going through this trauma, you know, I know that it's hard for relatives to understand, but I really look at trauma as a good thing because it propels growth. And if you look at the womb of a mother, if it wasn't for the baby having to go through the trauma of the mother's womb, there would be no life. And I look at that as what's happened in my life. If I didn't go through what I did, I wouldn't transform into being such a healthful self-love, and still learning being, but I'm not. I don't care about what other people think of me anymore. I feel this purpose on what I need to do because of that. So with this mind body medicine work, it's not based on just domestic violence. It's based on any kind of trauma, any kind of stress. Like I said, they go and help, like for example, the relatives of Ukraine. They went through the war. There's school shootings. They've gone to places like that. Genocide, all sorts of different places that experience a form of trauma. and these different techniques that we use in mind body medicine, such as drawings, meditation, active meditations like dance and movement. There's a lot of different avenues. But yes, to answer your question, my personal experience is the propeller for this program, for doing this.
Thank you so much. Mark, do you have a question you want to throw in there or comment?
Yeah, a question and a comment. I just think, Cynthia, fantastic uh, representation of what you've been through, and how you've been able to turn that around into the good. And I know we've spoken about this in the past on this show, but it's worth repeating again. And that is that the firm conviction that we are allowed to endure things that we go through, the traumas that we endure, so that we can pivot that and to help others and to actually be able to speak to those issues with some weight, some street cred, if you will. And you do an excellent job at that. You're an outstanding representative, and so I applaud you for that. I too was just kind of curious as to did you seek this out yourself, or were you referred over by a friend or a colleague or something?
It healed my heart and my mind and connected me to who I am so powerfully. I was inspired to want to know mind body medicine and to be able to help my relatives. And like Tia was asking about, is it like when you go through something like this, should you have to help your relatives? No, that's a choice. That's a choice from your heart. If you don't do it with your heart, then you're not doing it with purpose. And for me, this is all purpose, and being able to
Yeah.
help those that are on that journey and know that you can get through that. There is a way out of that. You know what I mean? But yeah, I was inspired to want to become certified. My dream job would be to go and be a motivational speaker all over the country and share mind body medicine and go to different schools and help the kids with mind body medicine and things like that. And in my situation right now, I live in teacher housing. There's limited housing here, so if I don't work at my job, I don't have a house, because you have to work there to have this housing. So it's like there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of limited resources for our relatives here, and I know it's possible. I'm praying one day I break through somehow to be able to do something like that. But for now, this is where Creator wants me. This is what I'm supposed to be doing, and I believe in that.
Mm, yeah.
Mark, did you have anything else?
No, I think it's interesting, and some of the things you touched on. There's a lot of places to go with it, but you were talking about the what I would say PTSD, the depression that you go through, and I think one of the most interesting things about victims of domestic violence is the so many people do not think of themselves as a victim, and whether this is because of culture or upbringing, there's all kinds of sociological implications and discussions in this, but regardless, that it is that awareness that you are a victim, that you do not have to endure this, that this is not normal, and that you can seek help. These are all incredibly motivating factors that people need to consider, that are hopefully listening to this broadcast, or certainly that if anyone listening to this broadcast knows people that are going through this, can convey to them. You're not deserving of this. You're not a victim per se, even though you may have been perpetrated on you, but you don't have to take it.
Right.
So, Mark, that's actually kind of where I wanted to turn with encouraging individuals to come forward, to seek help, to find resources. In the past few weeks, I have come across several individuals who are at the point of giving up, and giving up in the sense where they were just settling for the atmosphere. settling for the circumstance of abuse, as if this is it, it's over, I'm tired of trying. And that is absolutely heartbreaking to see a person come to that end, because in in their minds they've done all that they can do, and now it's like it's over. I'm just going to take it. And I've tried to express, not only, this is not your fault, this is wrong, but yes, you can change. Your life can change for the better. It may not be overnight, but there are steps that you can take. And I say again, just like I tell children, if you don't get the help that you get the first time you speak out, then you keep doing it. You keep going, you keep reaching out until you get to that individual or that place or that organization that hears you and that listens to you. So, Cynthia, I want to ask you, how do you go about encouraging individuals to open up? And it may be like that one more chance that they, open themselves up and reach out for it. How do you encourage individuals, and especially men,
Mm.
to move past that point of giving up?
See, most times our relatives won't say anything, you know, and I wouldn't know unless they reach out and ask me, and then I would be there to let them know that I'm here and if they need that help.
Okay.
And I understand the feeling of going through that domestic violence because for some relatives, it's due to being far away from their family, you know, and the perpetrator keeps them from their family, won't allow them to speak to their relatives on the phone. They're in situations where the perpetrator has all the money, so they can't go anywhere. Um, One thing that helped me in my situation was that at my work, I was working at Head Start at that time in Rosebud, South Dakota. They brought over a program called the White Buffalo Calf Women's Shelter that was so essential in that period of the incident that happened at that time. But they came to our work and talked about domestic violence, talked about resources, and planning out how to get away. You know, having a bag ready, having something stashed. You know, things like that to be able to leave. Unfortunately, for a lot of our women, they usually go. And in my situation, it was no different. You know, I left my ex for about a week, and then my kids, I had four at that time, missed their dad. They didn't want to they didn't want him to be gone, you know, and I started to feel it. And I had my friends tell me, don't bring him back. He's gonna be do it against you. And no, you bring him back because there's this emotional attachment that happens. And that was to my demise of going into that physical abuse that happened after that. Um, which was very horrific in so many ways. I should have died, but Creator kept me alive and helped me through that situation. I was basically a hostage all night long, being beat up all night long. And in that healing recovery from that, my face was all bruised, my hair was cut off. I was crying blood for 2, 3 days. The left part of my face was numb for about 3 to 6 months before it came back and feeling. And even my dental is affected by it. The nerves are changed and rerouted where they have to numb me a certain way just to be able to numb me. Um, and that was very difficult to go through. You know, the physical heals, but the mental emotional was the hardest to heal from in that situation. So yeah, I think that the conditioning that we go through, thinking that we can't leave and we have to be with that person because of the situations, can be, you know, changed by getting into more resources. The This White Buffalo Catholic Society was so powerful on helping me face my offender. They brought me to court. They brought me to Rapid City, which from there is like 3 hours away, to help with my dental appointments, with the orbital eye surgery I had to have. And I didn't want to face him. And that was another powerful part of my healing was, they encouraged me. They said, you should go. We'll be here with you. We'll have a representative with you. And in the process of this, I got my spirit back because what happens when we put too much into someone else is we give them a piece of our spirit, and when I faced my offender in that court, my spirit came back to me and I became who I was before I met him in a foundational way, and it's been years now since that time. And every now and then I'll have a trigger that'll come out of nowhere. But using this beautiful mind body medicine program and just observing the feeling, it's okay to feel angry, it's okay to feel mad, it's okay to feel sad, but don't stay there. Observe it. And being able to breathe and the benefits of simply breathing is powerful in so many ways on our mental, physical, emotional health. So I hope that answers your question there. But
Yes, it did. And I believe as we are trying to encourage victims and survivors to move forward in our lives, to change the situation that they may be currently in, or even to deal with past situations, I think we have to remember it's not just the physical part. So there is much of encouragement that needs to happen mentally. There's encouragement that needs to happen emotionally, and encouragement needs to happen spiritually. So it's not all what you can see. It's not all just get your bags and just go, because everybody can't do that. And then in some situations, when you do, you can pick up and leave. You still have to deal with the mental and emotional part. You have to deal with that spiritual part, like the real you, who you are. So as we do want to encourage individuals to get the help that they need, to reach out for resources. But sometimes resources we think, money. And no, that's not everything. Sometimes a resource is not, just the house or home. Those are important things. But sometimes the resource, the very most important one at the moment could be you need the right therapist. You need to sit in front of the right person who you can open your heart and your mind to and work through the situation that you're in. And it's not a small thing. And we never, ever on this program want to make anybody feel like you just get up and make a change and everything is great. It takes work. It takes a lot of work. It's hard work. It's scary work. It doesn't feel good. You may not want to, and it's okay. And as Cynthia was saying, you feel how you feel. It's okay, but we really do want to be an encouragement in a way of saying, do something, take a small step, move forward for yourself in some kind of way. And so, with that, Mark, I'll give it to you for any questions or comments you want to add in there.
As I'm listening to the conversation, I'm just thinking about, and you're hitting it on the head with the psychological and the emotional aspects of things as well. I mean, you almost want to consider it from a twofold perspective: the perpetrator and the victim. And we need to understand that the perpetrator's motivation is about control. It's about manipulation of people to whatever extent necessary. And I think one of the fascinating things we don't really consider very much because we think of it in terms of physical abuse more than anything else. I think in the general population, but it is psychological. It is emotional. Emotional to the standpoint where the perpetrator can threaten the children, even threatening pets. Which again we don't think about it, but actually animal cruelty is linked into this. We touched on the idea of substance abuse. Alcohol is a great motivator of this, and we need to be honest and upfront about that, and discuss that as well. Um, People who normally might not do this when they're imbibing a bit too much have a road. I think one of the interesting things that I found is, in my readings was that essentially, depending on the definition being utilized, one out of every two women in the United States has been a victim of domestic violence. Again, depending on the definition utilized. Um, and about 1 in 10 men. So this, and that number is nationally, and depending on what region of the world you go into. So this stuff is just absolutely staggering, and and we're talking about the from the victim standpoint. Where there's again cultural taboos that are in many places in the world, in places like India, where you wouldn't necessarily be thinking in these terms. But you have numbers that are 30, 40% of the people, male and female, are justifying domestic violence. And just in other countries in Africa and other parts of Asia, that number could even go higher. Latin America as well. So it's just absolutely staggering when you start talking about this. And actually, I would like to, Cynthia, as I'm thinking about that, you're involved in an organization that is very international. I did see in some of your on the website that you're in some very interesting places, namely Israel, namely Gaza, namely Ukraine, in addition to a host of others. But obviously, those three places are very high profile in the news. I'm wondering if you could just circle back and give us, I know we're constrained for time, and any one of those could be a 4-hour topic in itself. But if you could just give us a general overview of some of your thoughts or some of the things that you're aware of in each of those three regions in particular.
Um, so the Center for Mind Body Medicine, and you can also look that up, cmbm.org. We have colleagues all over the world. In the area that I'm at, I'm working more on the trauma and the war on trauma here. I'm not very familiar with the experiences of war that are going on the other side of the world. At this moment, I really try to concentrate on the generational trauma and the inner war that our relatives go through here, which is just as you know, what do you call it? Damaging as it is, and the physical wars that are going over there in a different way. And none of them are good, in any sense. And we want to encourage peace. We want to encourage forgiveness. And one of the powerful mind body medicine techniques is the forgiveness meditation. And it was the first one that I learned. And in my healing journey, what I've learned is that if we hold on to that hatred of what the perpetrator did to us, then we will never fully heal. And in my experience, my ex, he as a little boy witnessed his dad beating up his mom. And that's where he learned it from. And he never healed from it. And it just went on in the generation in that way. And that's where we need to stop the war of trauma, the war of generational trauma, to be able to heal from that and to be a whole healed person. There's a common saying here, like, that's my other half, or, uh, things like that. But what it should be is you're a whole being and they're a whole being. And there's respect for each other walking on this path. And that's a mental, thought that has to change in the thinking of being able to heal from the attachments that we put on our relationships. And the key to that, again, is forgiveness, not only to that person, but forgiving yourself for whatever you feel that you didn't do good enough or right enough, that you think you made a mistake on. And in this meditation of forgiveness, there's about 4 different components to it. The first one is that you're forgiving the person that hurt you. The second one is you're asking forgiveness for the person you hurt. The third one is forgiving yourself. And the fourth one is giving forgiveness to the world, those that need it all over the world and that are in war-stricken communities, genocide, and weather, horrific situations. Just being able to mentally change that thought and to find more peace within us. When we find more peace within us, then the healing naturally occurs around us. We naturally attract good partners. We naturally have boundaries that will not allow negative situations in our life. And it's unfortunate the wars that are going on the other side of the world. And I send my sincere prayers that there is peace and healing and perseverance to get through this time in humanity, because there's things bigger than us as humans that could affect us if we don't start healing ourselves. And that can go into environmental disasters. And everything is connected. But it all starts right here within you. When you find that peace within you, you heal things around you that can cause a, effect on others. So, yeah.
Mark, did you have something else?
Yeah, no, I just I applaud the entire idea of the ability
Mhm.
to engage in that level of forgiveness. You're a better person than me. It joking aside, I mean, being serious, it is incredibly difficult, and most of us have a very difficult time. You know, being victimized, although it is essential. I do believe you're correct that for us to move forward, and I guess like anything, it's a process. When
Absolutely.
you're the victim of something, when you're pushed, the instinctive reaction is to push back, and I'm reluctant to say that's healthy, but it's understandable. Let's put it that way.
Mhm.
But given time and distance, and that's the key, is that there is the need to engage in what you're talking about, that level of forgiveness on multiple levels, by the perpetrator and by everything else, by the circumstances. And again, as we started out talking about, recognizing the pattern, recognizing what is going on, and being able to parlay that into a method or in your case, an organization, which can then be used to help other people who may be just on the front end of this and really haven't been completely devastated, but to give them the option and to give them the opportunity to this alone, that again, one of the most interesting things is people really just kind of hunkering down and accepting the situation, not really recognizing that there's anything that they can do to get out of it. And I still have difficulty wrapping my mind around that. Having grown up in a bad area in New York, my response was always to push forward, not always in the nicest ways, but self preservation is a very strong instinct for me, and it I have trouble relating to people who just absolutely and I'm not speaking that down. I understand how that can happen. In fact, I think most people's circumstance, most people avoid the confrontation, back off, and unfortunately that means submission, and that is not necessarily healthy. And what you touched upon, the intergenerationalness of this, when children see their parent being dehumanized, the loss of empathy, the loss of self-esteem and esteem for the parent. It is just it's changing the dynamic. It's changing the whole worldview, and it's taking that innocence from a child.
Mhm.
All of that, leaving aside what it's doing to the person being victimized.
Mhm.
So it's on so many levels. It's staggering.
And so I think, oh, Cynthia, you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you. What came up for me when you were talking about that, and this is a technique in mind body medicine, is we're always bringing it to ourselves. If something triggers us that someone says or inspires us, we don't cross talk and talk directly to them in our circles. We say, what's coming up for me, what I'm feeling, what I'm acknowledging myself. And just like a child, when the child comes up to you and says, "Look what I drew. Here's a rock. Look what I found." They want that acknowledgement. Well, our inner child wants that acknowledgement, our inner feelings, the emotions. You can look at them as a child. And when we acknowledge those feelings that are coming up, it helps to release something, it helps to heal something. And one beautiful thing about the mind body medicine program and many things, but is that what I've had relatives that come in the circle and they have been inspired by mind body medicine. And the goal is we want them to start their own circles eventually. They don't have to if they don't want to. But the goal is to keep those ripple effects going, to help the healing of others through their own healing, through their own, specified situations that they could help. Some may be in recovery, some may be, in different traumatic situations that they heal from that they could help others. So that's one of the goals that is part of mind body medicine that is beautiful because it has reached the whole world. The ripples have affected the whole world through Dr. James Gordon's creation of this program, inspired by lots of cultural and different techniques, spiritually, mentally, physically. It's a beautiful program.
Mhm. Well, Cynthia, thank you very much for what you are doing, and even just that sense within the healing circle to be able to carry it on, for you to get the healing and help that you need, and then to be able to take the next step. That's an awesome thing because there's no point in us trying to encourage individuals to get help and to seek out resources that aren't there. So I appreciate what it is that you're doing, and as you were speaking, and Mark, one of the last things that you said when we were talking about intergenerational issues, I thought about perpetrators being children and repeating the pattern of what they saw when they become adults. And so that is another reason right there why we want to encourage individuals, victims and survivors to get the help that they need for themselves so they don't become who and what hurt them.
Absolutely.
I have seen
Absolutely.
individuals, I've seen men who were tortured by their mothers and their sisters, who in turn, instead of getting the help that they needed for themselves, now they hurt and torture the women in their lives. And so you're no longer that little boy. You're no longer 5, 6, 7 years old. Now you're a grown man still holding on to what your mother or your sister or whatever
Right.
female or whoever did whatever to you. And instead of getting help, you turned around and became what it was that hurt you. So, seeking out help, seeking resources, it is for you mentally, it is for you emotionally, it is for you to heal. But I think a huge part of it is for you also not to repeat the pattern. And you can't do that without help. You can't put the blinders on and say, I'll just be okay. I've seen individuals inflict verbal and emotional abuse, and they didn't even know that it was happening. I've had to stop individuals as it was happening, pull them to the side and say, do you know what you just did? Do you know what you just said? And they were oblivious to that. So there is a plethora of reasons on why you need to get help if this is your
Yeah.
situation. And it doesn't matter how long ago it happened. You can be far removed, but if there are some things that are still lingering, you need to deal with it. Shoving it under the carpet does not help. Not at all. Yeah, Cynthia.
What that was bringing up in me was a reminder that what trauma can do to us mentally. We feel undeserving to receive help. We feel because we've been failed so many times that we have to, rely only on ourselves, and we can't rely on anyone else because we'll get hurt again. But the beautiful thing is when we use these techniques, such as simply breathing, and we're softening our belly, they call it soft belly, we're allowing more oxygen in our lungs, we're allowing more circulation in our heart. The heart gives blood to itself before it gives blood to the rest of the body. And that's how our healing needs to be in order to be able to really become fully healed. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
But thank you. Thank you so much. Cynthia, I want to thank you again for being here with us. We are just under the hour. And so I want to ask you both. I'll start with you, Mark, and then you, Cynthia, if you would just leave us with your final words on tonight for our Love Bay listeners and viewers. Mark?
Yes. Riveting conversation. I thought it would be, and it certainly was. Again, Cynthia, you're an excellent representative for your cause. I am sorry for the traumas that you've gone through, but again, I applaud that you're able to turn that in a fashion that's able to help others, and urge you to continue in that. And to our listeners, I would say again, if you are a victim, I hope you can understand the substance of what we're talking about here, and that is in terms of you're not the person who has brought this upon yourself, that you do not deserve it, and that there are opportunities for you to find help. Reaching out in numerous different ways, and I understand the difficulties. There might be children involved. There are financial implications. You could be dependent upon the person who's abusing you, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different things and a lot of different reasons for this. Nevertheless, and as Tia points out, it's oftentimes not even just a case of simply yourself, but those around you whom you also love. And it's kind of crazy because you throw yourself in front of a bus to save your child, but yet you'll allow them to endure a situation like what we're discussing here this evening. And so there's just that mental incongruity that goes on, and we need to be cognizant of this. Explanations are not excuses. We need to take the time to understand what's going on from all different perspectives. But at the end of the day, we need to take the actions that we need to take to ensure our survival and the survival of those that we love, including the people who are doing this, as well, because they're victims of a different sort.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. Cynthia, if you would leave us with your final words and thoughts on this evening.
And I'm a writer and a poet as well, and I do a lot of inspirational videos from intuition. I call it intuition writing. So I want to leave you all with this to show how powerful you are as women, how powerful you are as men, and how beautiful you are. So did you know that Unchimaka in Lakota, that means Mother Earth, or as we know her, Mother Earth, to become who she is, had to take hits left and right from asteroids, comets, and space dust. She absorbed and grew all this to become the big, beautiful planet that she is for us to live on, that we know her as now. She took a lot of crap to become who she is, and yet she still takes care of us, and she shelters us from cosmic storms. That's why we should always walk with respect with her and walk in prayer on her, because we are part of her. And our women that experience abuse or domestic violence absorb a lot of energy from that. In the healing process, we become like Mother Earth, full of growth, compassion, and beautiful cycles for others to do the same with our healing. So do not give up on your healing or the thought of getting out of that situation, because you will. And our men need prayers and healing too. Thank you.
Cynthia, thank you so much. And if you could just share your contact information again for anyone who wants to become a part of the Oglala Women's Healing Circle, or to be able to provide donations to you. Could you share that again before we go?
Sure, there's two resources that you can connect with me to get on these programs or see where the meetings are. The main one is our Facebook page, Oglala Women's Healing Circle. Oglala is Oglala. I also have my email. It is Oglala WHC.com. That represents Women's Healing Circle. Oglala WHC at gmail.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love Bay, if you want to catch up on previous episodes of our program, you can visit our YouTube channel, Suffering in Silence DV. We thank you so much for joining Suffering in Silence with Evangelist Tia here on Love Bay Afrobeat Music Talk Radio. We're here with you every Friday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. Love Bay, we are continuing to rise out of the ashes together. Good evening.